Welcome to The Leaders Who Care, a podcast powered by Dynamis Group. We are here to give the stage and support to those committed to create a positive and lasting impact, way beyond the profits and margins, the leaders of the world who care for others and serve a bigger purpose. Join us on the journey of creating a better, more caring world. And now to your host, Stoyan Yankov.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 31 of The Leaders Who Care. I'm honored and privileged to be having today with me somebody I've met back in 2014 at a conference in Norway, and ever since have been meaning to invite her to a format that we have. And today I have a pleasure to interview her for the platform. Robyn Benincasa, who's an exceptional performer. She's a firefighter. She's a two-time world champion in adventure racing, and these are just part of the things that she's doing. So Robyn, instead of me introducing you, why don't you introduce yourself and give us a bit of a context about who you are, where do you come from, and what's your focus today?
Oh boy. Well, I hate woofing on myself, so I'll give you the short and sweet version. Let's see what got me to here. I kind of grew up doing a ton of different sports, from gymnastics and diving and track, and and then triathlon, and then I discovered a sport called adventure racing, and I went from being a total like solo athlete to being in a team sport, and the change in the dynamic that came with that, and the synergy that was involved in that sport to get to the finish line, and not just get to the finish line but win these races, was something that I was just so inspired by, and just inspired by my teammates and the love they showed each other and the lack of ego, and and just the commitment, against all odds to get to the finish line. And kind of for me, that was the where I sort of turned the corner and said, you know what, I was a soloist, but now I see really this team synergy as the way forward, like in the world. Whatever your goal is, whether it's climbing a mountain or starting a business or whatever it may be, the key is to surround yourself with amazing people who like truly and deeply believe in you, believe in the mission, can think as we, and understand that people are going to lead based on their different strengths and all these amazing things we learn in adventure racing. And I sort of took that and not only brought it to my career as a firefighter, but then also sort of by accident got recruited to speak at a Fast Company magazine event, because they did an article about extreme teamwork, and they included our adventure racing team in the article. And their focus was trying to figure out like what made some of the world's most consistently high performing teams, as consistent as they were at the top of their game. And so they interviewed our team, and a team from Industrial Light and Magic, and a team from NASA. And it was a really cool article about extreme teamwork. And they asked me to speak at this conference, and I thought I was going to die. And I got up in front of, because I'm like a total introvert, and I got up in front of all these people at this conference, and it was just magic to watch like the light bulbs go on for people. And like I never thought of leadership like this. I never saw teamwork like this. Like a lot of people think that teamwork's just walking side by side towards a common goal, but we proved in adventure racing that that's not it at all. That's part of it, but real teamwork is carrying each other, towing each other, loving each other, leaving your ego at the start line and taking your full collective strength and doing the very best you can with that every step of the way. And so that's what I do now. I'm a team builder, and I not only do that as a firefighter, but talking to whoever wants me to come out and play and talk about this amazing synergy and how we create that and how we succeed against all odds in times of incredible challenge and change. And and so it's a little bit ironic that I went from like my start being a total soloist to a total turnaround to say solo is good, but it's not going to get you to where you want to go, and you have huge, hairy, audacious, ridiculous goals like we all should have.
It's really interesting. You mentioned at your first speech, You were so scared. You thought you're gonna die. I watched some YouTube videos with you doing this adventure racing, and I thought just by watching, I'm gonna die. Like, and I think people who are listening right now, they probably don't have a context about this. So, could you, before we go into this whole team building and leadership, share with the audience a little bit about this sport, what is interesting about it, and how did you actually get passionate about joining this very extreme sport?
Um, well, I was lucky in a way, in sort of that, luck that happens where opportunity meets preparation. so so I had done Ironman triathlon for a number of years, and so I had about 10 of those under my belt. And um, I I kind of stumbled upon adventure racing. I read about it in Runner's World. There was only one American team doing it at the time, and it was Mark Burnett's team. And if you recognize his name, you probably have watched Survivor or recently Eco Challenge on TV. He's the guy who started Survivor. He was an adventure racer back in the day. He also started Eco Challenge, which was the biggest adventure race. And he had the only American team ever to enter this sport. And so I remember I was reading this article and I had that like lightning bolt moment, like this is what I was meant to do. Like, because Ironman wasn't long enough for me, and I don't mean that in like a, because I wasn't very fast, but I could keep going. So I was like, I just need something longer, like something really stupid, like really ridiculous, like just off the charts endurance wise. And then I read the article about adventure racing, and I just went, I literally, I just remember like going, that's it, like the light bulb just went on. And so I started just seeking out, people that were going to the next tryout to be on Mark Burnett's team. And there was a guy at my gym who's a Navy SEAL who happened to be one of the guys that was coming to facilitate this tryout to be the woman on the American team to go. But I'll give you kind of the scoop about what it is. It's the sport was invented by a crazy Frenchman who is fantastic, a guy named Gerard Fusil. And he was trying to mimic the Whitbread round the world sailing race, but on land. And so his idea was to, and I will always be grateful to him for this part of the rules, in that you had to have mixed gender teams. Otherwise we would have never really discovered how strong women are in this sport, because of course, and I wouldn't fault him for it, but a lot of the guys be like, well, let's just get four of the best guys. Like, why would you really pick a girl, until and unless we knew and we discovered that it was usually the girls that were stronger near the end of the race and able to carry more weight and keep the team going. And like, we never would have really known that. But so you have to have mixed gender teams, and the race director will say, hey, meet us on a high plain in Tibet on May 3rd. And they'll give each team a set of maps and road rules, and you have to chart your own course, and it's usually 600 to 1,000 miles long. And in the old school adventure races, it was totally nonstop. Like occasionally there'd be what's called a dark zone, where if it was class 4 whitewater or something, they didn't want you to do it at 3 o'clock in the morning, so you'd have to wait until the sun came up. But generally it was all on you, whether you stopped, whether you ate, whether you raced, whatever you and your team did was completely up to you, including the navigation. So you have to navigate your way, usually 7 to 10 days nonstop, 600 to 1,000 miles, and navigating your way through 25 or 30 checkpoints, and whoever gets to the finish line first wins. Easy peasy. And along the way, you see your crew a few times, usually where you're changing sports. So like you'll go from mountain biking to whitewater rafting, or you'll go from running to mountain biking, or whatever it is. And that's where you have your gear, and your crew lays out your gear, and you dive into your box and open a can of chili and try to try to get it into your body. And I mean, it's total mayhem. And
What was how long did you sleep during you had two world titles, right? What was the average sleep that you have per night when you were racing?
um, it kind of like, well, we discovered no sleep is bad. We discovered that the hard way. Um, and yeah, the first adventure race we did, we tried to go 3 days without sleep, but we made it. But then we walked around in circles in a field for 7 hours, having no idea who we were, where we were. We all completely lost each other, like a half a mile apart. It was a nightmare. So we discovered that you have to get about an hour and a half of sleep. every 24 hours, just to get like 1 or 2 REM cycles in there for your brain to be able to operate. But generally, we'd be racing like 22 something hours a day if you wanted to win.
Yeah, and you mentioned something really interesting that usually you discover that women are the ones that at the last phases of the competition are the ones that are more resilient and they're kind of pushing the wind forward. Can you elaborate maybe on that?
Uh, you know what? We would have never really known it unless we were going that long. I think there's something in our physiology that that's protective in a way, and I think some of it is the fact that we don't lose weight. So, like the guys would like lose like 15 or 20 pounds over a race. I would lose none, zero, not 1 pound. And I mean, most of the girls too. And like there's something weirdly protective in our bodies, in our fat layers, whatever that is. Like we would sort of just stay like this the whole race in terms of our energy. In fact, I would kind of do this. I would go up near the end, and the guys would start it really strong and then just kind of slowly, as they lost a lot of weight and strength, sometimes they would need some more help. So I was usually the person that was like on a tow line, right out of the gates. But as the race went on, near the end, I was often the person that was, definitely carrying my own pack, maybe some more stuff, helping. I wasn't our team's best navigator, but I was like truly like driven competitively. I was one of our strategists usually. And so, it was sort of on me in a lot of cases, near the end to in the middle to keep people rallied. But everyone just, I mean, that's the beauty of it. It's like I would fall apart sometimes and then someone else would step up and then they would fall apart and then I would step up or some other teammate would step up. And that's just how you roll, like on a world-class team. It's like there's no egos allowed, and strength is completely collective, energy is completely collective. And if you're sucking, like one of the reasons I loved racing with the Australians and New Zealanders is because they never brought their egos with them. It was amazing. Like if they were sucking, they would literally go, "Mate, I'm sucking," so like we could like gather around and help or whatever. And it's so much better to say that than to just completely fall apart, and maybe drop out of the race, because one of the other rules was that you were disqualified the minute you lost one teammate. So you
Hmm.
had to cross the finish line with everyone or you were disqualified.
And that, of course, leads me to a question. Was there a situation? I'm sure there were a lot of stories, but the first story that comes to mind of a huge struggles, huge challenge that you personally had that you had to overcome during a race. How did you manage to put yourself up in the midst of the biggest crisis?
Oh, I think, a lot of, ultimately a lot of your deep, deep, deep strength comes from not wanting to let your teammates down. Like I can't be the person that disqualifies this team. Like I will literally go to the edge of my existence to ensure that I can keep putting one foot in front of the other. And, so there were a number of times where I was, this close to not necessarily like raising my hand and quitting, but like being so jacked up that the race director is like, a human being can't keep going like this, So God, there was a time in Norway where I crawled for about 14 hours because I couldn't walk. There was a time in Ecuador where we had to summit a 19,700-foot active volcano um, in the middle of the race on day 3 with no sleep. And um, I had 104 fever, and my O2 sat was less than 70 when the doctors, well, it was 71 at a hut at 15,000 feet, but I got to 18,000 feet. I was definitely way less than 70. And I was on the ground and crying and wondering how I was going to roll it back down to the hut and, go to the hospital or, whatever needed to happen. But I just knew I couldn't keep going. I wanted to, but and then I had a teammate come over to me and say, Rob, we have to have 3 people finish or we're out of the race. And John and I, it was my team captain, Robert Nagley, said, John and I are being told we have high altitude pulmonary edema and we have to go down from 18,000 feet. And so our even finishing this race is now 100,000% completely up to you. Because I had to go up.
No pressure.
And I just remember just like, and then he looked at me and he said, you can do it, Rob. You can do it, Rob. And when he said that, I have this like a snapshot on my brain of like his face saying, you can do it, Rob. And, all of a sudden I stopped crying and I started like, and this is on video. It's only because I don't remember any of it. I've only seen it. I had no oxygen in my brain, and I just start like nodding, like yes, I'm going to do this. And I stood up, and like my whole camelback was completely frozen. Like we hadn't had water in at least 6-8 hours at that point, and we still had to get to the summit and back down. I mean, we're completely dehydrated. When I did get back down, I had 104 fever. And oh yeah, we should have all been going to the hospital, honestly, but but it was we all had issues, but I was the worst. And I was blue. And but I just remember thinking, Robert said I can do this, and like I have to do it for him. I have to do it for him and John and for the rest of the team. And that's all I remember thinking. And the only way I knew that I did it was because it's on video. But that was sort of my last memory of. But the 3 of us made it to the top and continued on in the race and actually ended up winning. And to date,
Wow.
that was the longest, toughest adventure race. That most people would say that the Ecuador raid was because it was 9 days for the win. So there were people out there 12, 13 days. Yeah. And we had to summit the 19,700 foot volcano. Yeah. In the middle of it. So, I mean, but in the real world, I would have been leaving on a stretcher, but just the power of someone else believing in you that much, it literally overcame my physiology and put it in my head that I belong with these guys. I belong on the best team in the world. And it happened like that.
This is such an exceptional point, and not just for people who are competing in sports, but I think people also being in business. How do we create teams where people care so much for the bigger purpose and for each other that they'll do whatever it takes to make it happen? They'll endure any challenges. And Robyn, you have written a best-selling book called How Winning Works, and it's based around a framework. Could you maybe lead us quickly through what is teamwork, what does it stand for, and why is this important in winning?
So yeah, it's back when Fast Company asked me to speak, they were like, we need you to talk about like what is it that made your team great, and led to your consistency. And it was one of those like kind of cool moments where I sat down to start like writing what it was. And all of a sudden, aside from, 1 or 2 of them, but all of a sudden I looked down and I was like, oh my God, this is an acronym for teamwork. Are you kidding me? And it was so cool. Like it just like completely came together. And so at first it was called the essential elements of human synergy. And, but I've also called it like the essential elements of extreme performance but it really is those 8 elements that are almost like a spine. They're almost like vertebrae on a spine, where if they're all fully aligned on your team, you have that stability, you have that power, you have that trust, and you're going to be extremely successful. But if one of them is out of alignment, you have to take a long look at it and fix that. And that's what the book is about, is like, how do you recognize these 8 essential elements? How do you create these 8 essential elements, and how do you fix them, when they're not in line? And so the acronym is, again, it's teamwork, and the T is total commitment. The E is, which is to each other and to the finish line. Empathy and awareness. You have to have that human connection, to one another. You have to be able to put yourself in each other's shoes. You have to constantly be aware of how people are thinking, feeling. you know, you have to have one heart and one mind, basically. Um, the A is adversity management skills, and how do you handle like the craziest, toughest times and adapt, overcome, and innovate, and and continue to win. And that section's a lot about our team's like ability to really innovate. That was the hallmark of our team, was taking some of the tools that we were given, like that all the teams were given, and doing something totally different with them than what was intended. And all the times we would do things like, if we were given two inflatable canoes, I had a really smart teammate named Steve Gurney out of New Zealand, and he was like, let's just take our climbing rope and tie these two canoes together, and not just do two separate canoes, but do an end-to-end canoe like this. And so tie our two boats together, make one big one, so that we have all our full power of all five of us at the same time. And let's not use these canoe paddles that we were given. Let's get out our kayak paddles. And they're two different sports, but because they were canoes, we were given canoe paddles, and we're like, what the hell? Let's just we're better at kayaking. Why wouldn't we just like get our kayak paddle? And no one had ever thought to do that before. And so just little things like that. He also invented pulling kayaks with a kite surfing kite. He figured out how to do that too. He trained and trained and trained, and he got to the point where he could pull two kayaks or two boats with a kite surfing kite. So he would carry a little kite big, it's like 3 to 9 feet depending on the day. But he'd carry a kite surfing kite, and when it got windy, he would pop it out there and literally pull kayaks or boats across a lake while everybody ate and slept. And like just these kind of like crazy competitive advantages that this guy thought of all the time. So that section of adversity management is all about like, how do we innovate? How do we adapt? What about our mindset? Like, are we ruled by the hope of success or the fear of failure? And and how that changes things. The M is mutual respect. And how do we constantly build that foundation of trust and respect with each other? Because if your foundation is built, you can have all these little weird things going on the surface, and it doesn't matter. You can have all these little arguments and snippy things, and we're all human beings. But if your foundation is built, you never have to worry about those things, because you have built that trust and respect with one another, that no one can really penetrate. And so that section is about how to build that mutual respect. We thinking versus me thinking, which is that whole idea of, that African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And, I think a lot of people see that as sharing each other's strengths, but I also see that, and probably more importantly, sharing each other's challenges, which a lot of people don't feel comfortable doing. And then ownership of the project, that total buy-in of the organization's goals or the team's goals, and relinquishment of ego. Leaving your ego at the start line. Like our team always said, like, it's the heaviest thing in your pack. You can't bring it on the race course with you. Like it really is of no use to you, aside from wrapping your ego around your team's success. But when it comes to like your personal ego, ditch, it's too heavy. And how to do the asking for help and accepting help, and giving away the credit to your teammates, and all these just little tips and tricks that show your team, this isn't about me, this is about us winning this race. And then kinetic leadership, meaning like leadership that flows and changes, in terms of like literally changing leaders, which we did all the time. Like I think in a lot of organizations, it's this top-down leadership thing where it's like this person has the title, or this person, like in the fire department, we talk about who has the bugles or who has the gold badge, but they're not always the person who has the answers in the moment. Like we have a team captain, but they were only a quarter of the good ideas, or the strength, or the ability to navigate, or being awake while three other people were asleep. So that constantly changed. And then changing leadership styles, realizing who you need to be as a leader in the moment. Like, does someone just like need a friend? Does someone need a kick in the ass? Does someone need, a friend, or do they need like someone to be really directive, someone to tell me what to do right now? And the best leaders can seamlessly weave in and out of a bunch of different leadership styles, based on what their team needs, in the moment. And if you have all those things on your team, you're gonna kill it, whatever your goal is.
Is that the way you are structuring your workshops, your work with these leaders? When you go to organization, you measure how they're performing in each of these areas, and based on that you kind of set up some strategies to improve? Or is there any other methodology you use when you're starting to work in an organization?
Now, I mostly do keynotes, but some people have asked for, for workshops like that. And so I actually created a little thing called a team builder topography, where people answer questions about, it's almost like it's a 360 analysis of your team. And so I ask you a bunch of questions about like your commitment to the finish line. And you say like, do I highly agree or not agree with this sentence? So it's like, it's like a Cosmo magazine quiz, kind of, where it's like you answer all these different questions about that particular concept, and then you get a score based on that. And so at the end of this, I do it for each of the 8 essential elements. People will answer questions like, my manager cares more about my performance than their own, things like that, like to kind of, figure out like what's going on in your organization. And when it comes to these 8 essential elements, and then at the end, they actually have a bar graph of each of the 8 essential elements about where they stood, with their score, and they can see like we're great at commitment, we suck at at managing challenge and change, or we don't think as we, or we have too many egos in this organization, and so they can look at their lowest 3 their lowest 3 on the bar graph and say, let's work on these. Let's look at those chapters again. And at the end of each chapter, I have, ways to increase that particular essential element.
Got it. And the whole podcast, of course, is called The Leaders Who Care. So I'm actually curious to hear from you. What does it mean to you, a caring leader? A lot of people feel care is this soft word, right? It's something soft, and being caring in some places even perceived as a weakness. What does it mean for you to have a culture of care in an organization?
I think bottom line, like across the board, just in my own experience, like in the fire department, with my own nonprofit, with my other little company, with my speaking company, it's I think you're a caring leader if you choose extremely wisely in terms of your team, so that everyone is truly there, not just with each other, but for each other. And then I think, like, if at the end of the day, like I've always kind of said, like, we don't inspire people by showing them how amazing we are. We inspire people by showing them how amazing they are. And to me, that's a great leader. Is I am here to facilitate your success, because your success in my eyes is my success. And when I run our Project Athena adventures, which we could talk about in a second, but I'm very rarely the person out in front saying, unless we're lost, but like they're the person out in front saying like, follow me, I'm strong. I'm always the person that is facilitating everybody's success, but my ego in terms of is wrapped around their success, like watching, not doing something for people, but saying, here's all the tools, that you need to succeed. And I want to facilitate your success. I want to put you on my shoulders and show you how amazing you are. And I think that's a strength, as a leader. I think that, even like raising kids, or, I don't have any, but I feel like a lot of parents are great leaders in that it's like, I'm not going to do everything for you, but I'm going to facilitate your success in every area of your life, in all of your interests. I'm going to be there to ensure you have everything you need to succeed. I'm going to make sure that your life is fertile with these amazing things, and, and train you well, but I'm not doing it for you. I think there's a lot of care in watching people succeed, on their own, but helping them get there, elevating and inspiring them to get there.
So more coaching them rather than doing it for them.
Yeah.
And actually, I just read this quote by Nelson Mandela: "When there is danger, a good leader takes the front line, but when there is celebration, a good leader stays in the back room."
Mm-hmm.
which I think is also really beautiful and connected to this topic. And on the same topic, before we go to Project Athena, how can we promote this care culture? How can we inspire more leaders and organizations to be more caring, to look after their people, to create a culture where we put all the elephants in the room, we talk about things, we create this trust and all the beautiful things that you shared from this teamwork framework? How can we promote this care culture, Robyn?
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's definitely, it's a culture. It's a cultural thing. And I think it really starts with how people are seen and how they're incentivized, and how it starts from also the top of the organization. Because if people are continuously promoted because of just their own personal, I sold more, I was more competitive, if there's all these I's involved with with your promotion and getting to the next level, you train people how to be, right? I mean, so if part of your organization is you're going to be rewarded based on how many people that have worked for you have gotten promoted, not how many times you've gotten promoted, but how many people who have worked for you have moved on to amazing things. And when you create that kind of culture where it truly is this, um it's about service to others, and it's about we and not me, then that changes everything. And like when it's not about who gets the credit, and it's only about the customers and the people that you serve getting the results. And when there's like a genuine and deep value of everyone's background and skills and strength and culture, and it's not hierarchy based, and it's like, hey, you're bringing this, I'm bringing that. It's when it's this kind of environment where it's a potluck of all of our strengths and talents and skills, and everyone is expected to bring them forward regardless of your rank. And when it's performance instead of pride, that's a culture that you want to be a part of. But I do see it so often where organizations are so individual based, and not recognizing a great leader who may not even want to move up in the organization, but gets their thrill from elevating and inspiring everyone around them, to continue to move forward. I mean, I hope there's more organizations that start to see that, and kind of reward those people, for creating a we thinking culture.
Yeah, I think I don't remember how he coded, but we had a guest, Winston Ben Clemens, and he was talking about this care ambassadors and care champions,
Mm,
and it's not always the guy on the top, right? It's not the manager. Like there's some great managers and leaders and executives, but sometimes it's the janitor Joe, right? Who's always positive, who always knows how to ask the right question. So maybe this is what you're also talking about. How can we embrace and celebrate these care ambassadors in our organization so we can multiply it and we can create this culture, right?
yeah,
Oh,
no, I think that's a great point. And that's part of like valuing what everybody brings, regardless of what it says on your business card. It could be the person that's putting your lunch on your plate, that is your go-to person when you need to talk to somebody. That's part of what's making your company great. But yeah, I think that's a really, really cool point. Is let's look at the not just the dollar signs, of because I know a lot of salespeople, of course, they get all the kudos, but the best of them looks over their shoulder and says, look at how I got here, and gives away the credit to all of those people that were in that circle that elevated and inspired them. And that's how this whole positive culture kind of keeps spiraling up, is when everyone's like, no, it wasn't me, it was that awesome person that helped me get here. I mean, if everyone felt and spoke that way, I mean, I think you'd have an amazing culture. But it does, you train people how to be in your organization, and so it's got to be something that is rewarded. Yeah.
Right, and it comes by leading by example. And when you're talking about this type of culture where those people celebrate it, it reminds me about this famous story about John Kennedy visiting the NASA headquarters after he announced this big vision, this big mission that the United States is going to put a man on the moon within the end of the decade. And he visited NASA, he's talking to people, he's a very charming guy, he talks to everybody, and he meets this janitor. And he goes to him and says, "Hi, my name is John. What do you do?" "Oh, Mr. President, I'm helping to put a man on the moon."
That's cool. Yep.
He's not cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Mm-hmm.
part of the bigger vision, a bigger
Yep.
picture. He's passionate, he's excited, but this is because somebody recognized his part of the whole journey. So he's
Exactly.
feeling special.
Right. Yep. And when everyone shares that, like that higher sense of purpose, but that's a perfect example. He wasn't cleaning floors. He was helping put somebody on the moon, and that came from the highest levels, that creating that sense of purpose in everyone in that organization. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a story from the '60s. Keep inspiring people, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder if you from your experience and from your work with many of the world's leading organizations, if you actually can think of any example of a leader, somebody you met, or maybe like a specific story of somebody who's really a caring leader, who's really living by example. He's not doing it for the money, he's not doing it for the price. It's just natural for them. And if you can share that, there's a lot of leaders listening to this podcast that might eventually get inspired to follow the example.
I mean, I actually do meet tons and tons of people doing this, and I always know when I'm a part of an amazing culture because it's really cool because the room is just electric. With everyone just so thrilled to be there, so thrilled to see each other, so thrilled to be a part of it. I don't get to spend lots and lots of time in any one spot, but I'll tell you one story that just came to mind as you were talking about that. And when we first started Project Athena, where we help survivors live an adventurous dream as part of their recovery, one of the first survivors that we took on a big adventure was a breast cancer survivor named Sarah Jones. And it was it was crazy because we took her to the jungles of Costa Rica to do a 6-day ultra run. She was in the middle of her chemo. Like, this girl's off the hook. Like, she's amazing. She's a firefighter, and she was still on chemo, and she ran like the first day 30 miles with us, like through the jungles of Costa Rica. And she, her arm swelled up, she had lymphedema, she had was struggling when she got home that first day, and she said, "You know what, I'm gonna be on your crew now, for the next few days." And I will never forget this girl who had already had a partial mastectomy. She already had one breast removed. She was bald. She had her big sleeve on, and it could have been for her, like, you know, I have cancer, and therefore I have kind of earned the right, which she had, to rest in my tent and, and keep to myself and recover. And I'm telling you what, that girl for the rest of the race, she woke up every single morning early to make sure that all of us had coffee and brought our breakfast to our tent, and then made sure she got out on the course and cheered us on. And when we came in at night, she would take all our clothes and come to the shower with us and make sure that we had everything we needed and get our food. And we were just blown away by this human being, that we were there to facilitate her dream, and she ended up leading us, like being the person that was facilitating our dream. And to this day, like, I think about her when I think about like what real leadership is, and
Hmm.
what giving is, and the unselfishness, like, it was just whatever it took to make the people around her smile and help them have a better day while she knew she was slowly not making it. And
Mm.
we lost her in 2014. But you know, I clear as day. I remember her at the finish line every single day as though we were the rock stars, and all along she was the rock star, but she didn't even know it. You know, she didn't even realize it because that was just who she was.
Wow, Robyn, I gotta say I have my eyes wet. It's just such a story. Thank you for sharing with us that
Awesome.
these are the real leaders. This is what we're talking
This
about.
is
These are the people
she's
who.
this is actually her. Was an ad like for Jones Soda. This was a Jones Soda label.
Mm,
This is when she was bald, and this artist took this amazing picture of her, like as though she's in a start line at the blocks, like a track stance.
mm.
And so this is
Wow.
in my kitchen, as will always be. But I every day I'm always like, what would Sarah do? Like, just because I know whatever she would do is the right thing and the best thing.
Wow. Tell me more about Project Athena. Why did you guys start this? What is the scope of work and what is the focus that you have with it?
So Project Athena happened. I started having my hips replaced in 2008 ish, and I've had 6 hip replacements. Don't even get me started.
Wow. Okay.
A bunch have failed. Some cups have failed. But after my first one, I knew I wasn't going to be like adventure racing at the top of my game anymore. And so, but we still had all these like cool sponsors that were still engaged, and I was like, okay, what can I and my other semi-broken adventure racer friends do with, with sort of the background experience that we have, and maybe in a way that does something cool for other people. And we all just know the power of amazing and inspiring yourself, because we had done it for so many years in these races. We were like, what if we helped survivors of medical or traumatic setbacks like live an adventurous dream as part of their recovery, like to just show them how amazing and badass they are, after a huge setback in their lives. And so it's we set out to be like, we're not just gonna like have them walk a 5K. Not that that's not good enough. That's fantastic. If what you did 3 months ago was just walk to the mailbox and back, like that's huge. But we're like, no, we're doing huge, hairy, ridiculous, ludicrous endurance things with these survivors, so that it's their big, huge comeback party. And it's not only are they doing something that they never imagined they do, they're doing something that everyone they know would never do. And they're a survivor of something pretty traumatic. And so it's their turn to take the care that they had received over however many years and let everyone who was worried about them, who loves them, know, like, I'm back, and I'm not just back, but I'm a complete badass. And so it's amazing the transformation that happens for these people. Like when they know that um, their family doesn't have to worry, their kids don't have to worry about them. And one story that cracks me up is that we had a breast cancer survivor whose kids had slowly like started helping her more and more, and were worrying about her more and more. And they were like, mom, what can I do, what do you need? And she hated that because they were young kids, and she didn't want them to have to be worrying about her. And but they were, and they attended to her. And she came and did a kayak and bike ride 120 miles with us from Key Largo to Key West, down all the Florida Keys. And which is a huge, hairy like adventure where you're kayaking and riding like 40 miles a day. And And she said the best moment happened not from anybody's words, but she said, I got home, I got to the airport, and the bag started coming out around the carousel. And she said, I kind of stood back because I just knew that my kids were, my kids were going to jump on it. My kids were going to grab them. She kind of went back into her home life mode where the kids helped her do everything that was hard. And she said, I watched my bag go around and watched my bag go around again. And she said, I just had the biggest smile on my face because the kids knew I didn't need any help. And
Wow.
she was like, that was the best moment of my life. Like, the kids knew their mom was not going to need their help anymore because she was back, and better than ever. And so she's like, I didn't even say a word to him. I just stood there and smiled and watched my bags go around. Because it just made her so
Wow.
happy, that. But like people leave like just feeling, um, not only did they get their old self, they're just now the best of what they're capable of being. And so they go home with so much confidence, like just so much confidence for all of the 6 months of training, completing this adventure, meeting all these amazing people who in some cases they were able to help. It's a lot of people come on our adventures as fundraisers, that don't have a setback themselves. And it's funny because they all think that they're going to be helping the survivors. Like they're all excited they're going to help the survivors, on these adventures. And it's so cool because at least half the time it's the survivors that end up helping the fundraisers. And it just makes them so happy, like to put on an extra backpack or to sing with someone or laugh with them or hold their hand, or like to finally be in that position where I get to take care of somebody else. I'm not the one, I'm not the one anymore that everyone is looking at and staring at and feeling sad for and wondering about. Like, I'm the helper now. And that's part of the experience, is they just train so hard, and they just want this moment, they want this comeback so bad. And it's neat to be able to provide it for them. So we take survivors and fundraisers on 4 or 5 big endurance adventures per year. So we do a 50-mile hike up the coast of San Diego over 2 days. And we do a rim to rim to rim crossing in the Grand Canyon, where we don't just like go into the Grand Canyon and camp. We go down into it, hike all the way across it and all the way out in one day, and then sleep for a few hours and do it again the next day and go back. So, it's a thing that like even like ultra hikers and ultra runners, do as their big event. And we do a 45-mile through hike across Zion National Park over 2 days. And then we do that 120-mile kayak and bike ride from Key Largo to Key West. And the cool thing about it is that we all do it together as one big team, whether it's, 12 people or 35 people or 40 people, we all stay together. And so we
Wow.
kind of live what I talk about in my presentations. Like we do it as one big team. So our strength is collective, our energy is collective. When someone is struggling, someone else goes back and helps, whether it's just talking to them or singing together or literally towing somebody or literally, you know, we actually come up when we're cycling, we come up and put our hand on someone's lower back and kind of just push them, get next to them, push them up the hills. But it's really becomes a family. Like it's amazing to be on a team like that. Like that is just truly there for each other. It's a
I
totally
love
different experience.
I love the fact that you bring them together, and it's not just like to, oh, let's take care of you. You actually put them in these extreme adventures, extreme experiences, so there's no space for any part of the victim mentality to show
Mm,
up. They just come back home as completely transformed like person, the superhero version,
mhm.
if you may. And I would imagine they're not never coming back,
What's
because now you
that?
have and I would assume they're never coming back to this place of, like, even if they've
No.
been in this more like victim mentality,
Yeah. It's
It's
so
like,
cool to, I mean, it's literally 180-degree. Like they came as people that everyone was taking care of for, sometimes for years, you know, and then they go home as like as an Athena. That's why it's called Project Athena. Like they go home as like this incredible warrior goddess. That and the cool thing is like a lot of them love to pay it forward. So they'll go home and they'll like go back into their cancer survivor group or their PTS group or whatever it is, and they'll be like, hey, let's all get together in Norfolk in May and go run this half marathon together. And so they start doing their own little adventures with other people that need this kind of comeback experience. And so it just kind of grows these really cool legs where then they get to be the person to show other people how strong they are. And that's the joy in it for me is watching other people realize how strong they are. I mean, they were already strong battling whatever they were battling, but this is a whole different this is a whole different self-reliance that they had probably been missing for however long. Like, for them to go from being the sick person to the family badass is the best.
it sounds amazing. How could people get involved, either if they're seeking help as a survivor or if they want to support as a volunteer, somehow to be part of the project?
So the website is projectathena.org. So it's like, the goddess Athena. So it's projectathena.org. And our volunteers basically are the people that come raise money and come on the adventures with us. So and we take probably each group has comprised of about a third survivors and two-thirds fundraisers. And then we all just go together and everyone gets the same training plan. So you're training the 4 months on our training plan with the survivors, and then you do the adventure right alongside the survivors. So the only way that you would know the difference between who's a survivor and who's a fundraiser is just the color of the shirt. The survivors wear orange shirts, fundraisers wear white shirts. My team wears this blue shirt. and 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 we're all just equal. We're all just equal people on this journey, trying to get everybody across the finish line together.
Guys, everyone who's listening, make sure to check out projectathena.org, get in touch and see how you can get involved. Robyn, I want to ask you another question. Since the last 13, 14 months, the whole world has been changed. Many organizations, many people, started working from home. There have been some heavy restrictions and lockdowns, and now we start to see the effects that has been compounding from all this, and different studies are showing the effects that this pandemic has had on our mental health. So I wanted from you, as somebody who's an expert in endurance and resilience, to maybe share some advice for people who are struggling right now. Maybe somebody's sitting home listening to this podcast. What would be your advice, your message to people who are struggling to handle these lockdowns, these restrictions, this craziness and uncertainty?
Yeah, it's been nuts, hasn't it? I mean, it's been in some ways good because so many people have picked up talents and skills that they didn't have before. But I think pretty early on, the people that are going to come out of this really well realize something that I've always kind of thought, which is that none of us are ever going to be defined by our setbacks. We're going to be defined by our comebacks. And so what does that comeback look like? And focusing on that, like saying, okay, if I do this today, how is that going to manifest itself in a better life, a better business, something better for my family, whatever that is? What can I do today, right now, to prepare for my big comeback? Because it's coming. this is gonna end, and the light at the end of the tunnel isn't a train. but but it's about, like, where is your focus? Because it's easy to get kind of depressed. And I've also always thought that, like, depression is often from a lack of action, a lack of momentum, of some kind. It's not that there's something wrong with you, it's that you haven't found your thing, like your next thing. And I'm always kind of like, you got to keep searching, till you find the thing that wakes you up at night to dream. And so, like, when you've got your heart and mind wrapped around something that you almost can't sleep, that you're like, oh, I want to do this. Like, I have to do this. This is burning in my soul, whatever that may be. That's your next business, a volunteer project, something that's in your heart and soul. And so I think when people went into quarantine, when they kind of locked down, they kind of locked down their hearts and minds too, in some cases. And so it's time to find the thing, whatever that thing that is just so exciting to you that it's the first thing you think about when you wake up, and your drive, during the day, and the thing that you do one small move towards every single day. And if you haven't found that thing, you've got to keep looking. You have to look under every rock. You have to search. Like, is it, I want to volunteer with animals? Is it, I want to help, I want to help people who can't speak English, learn English, or, whatever it is. I want to run that marathon I never ran. Like, keep digging, till you find your thing, and then take the small steps every day. Cause there's a lot of courage, and not just the huge hairy leaps. I think the more important kind of courage lies in the tiny things that you do every day, the little tiny things that you do every day to take that next step forward, towards your dream. So, first of all, realize I'm going to define myself by my comeback. And what does that look like? What is my comeback? And then also, you got to kind of drag yourself out of that depressed place by saying, you know, I'm working on my thing, whatever my next thing is. That is where I'm headed, and setting your heart and mind and your focus on the thing. And I struggled with that this year too. Like, God, what's my thing? Like, there's no races, like Project Athena's, like, it's you're like, what's my thing right now? And it was hard. It was hard for a few months, but like every day I was just searching. And it's I feel like I found it in part, but I'm going to keep searching too. But I decided I want to start an animal sanctuary. So that's my next move,
Beautiful.
is to train. I mean, and not only just provide them a home, but I also want to, train rescue dogs for dog sports, and not just house them and give them a food bowl and a roof, but like to show them how awesome they are. Like what I did with Project Athena, I want to do, I also want to do for animals. So that's exciting. That's exciting to me.
Two major points I got from this last answer of yours. One is you got to start taking action,
Mm.
small steps, but instead of overthinking, what is something small I can start doing? And the second point, which I think is big, is how can I focus my energy and attention on giving and creating and building? So I'm not in my head, but I'm focused on making the lives of somebody else better. So I'm just gonna keep it here. I'm gonna ask you the last question before we wrap up this beautiful episode, and it is, Robyn, what is your vision for a better future? How do you see the future 12, 24 months from now in your kind of a dream, boldest dream scenario?
Well, like for the world.
Yes, for the world, for the environment, for everything.
um I mean, I think one way that kind of we all fall short, or it seems like a lot of the, at least in America, like, is falling short right now, is seeing people in groups instead of seeing them as individuals. And I think that, like, in my perfect world, people would find, like, every time they met someone, or even someone that they've been friends with or whatever for a long time, like they would find there's a nugget of good in everybody, and there's a nugget of something you can connect to in everybody. And to just discount people because they're that group, or that's their politics, or that's their this, or they're this religion, or whatever it is. And I find myself like at the fire station doing that a lot. Like I love, like genuinely love every single person at that station, and we're all different as could possibly be. But with each person, I have this little thing that I found that I truly deeply connect with them on. And in that way, I can move from person to person to person and be completely happy and not label them or dislike them because of this or that. But I mean, in my perfect world, if I had a perfect world, I would just say, like, find that nugget of goodness in everyone you meet. Come in with that positivity, like I'm gonna love something about this person. And can you imagine if everybody did that?
Amen. Thank you so much, Robyn, for this beautiful episode. Just if you can share with the audience, where could people find you, connect with you if they want to hire you as a speaker on their event or potentially get in touch with Project Athena? Where could they find you?
Let's see. I think they can get everything at robynbenincasa.com. And it's Robyn with a Y. So ROBYN, and then BENINCASA, like Ben in the house. Casa, Spanish. Ben in the house. So yeah, robynbenincasa.com or projectathena.org.
Well, thank you so much, Robyn, for being with us, for sharing your lessons to the leaders who care, and keep inspiring. Keep on doing what you're doing, because what you're doing is really creating a huge ripple effect and huge positive impact. It's inspiring us. And yeah, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your learnings.
Well, thanks, Stoyan. You're awesome. Thanks for having me as your teammate today.
It is absolutely our pleasure, Robyn. Thank you so much.